guys, it's Kaz, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. This tag was created by Chammy and Ellie, links down below. Let's check in, see how I'm doing so far this year, talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff, and before we get into these specific questions, I wanted to do a little bit of a check-in for my reading goals for 2020. So I set myself 5 goals. Goal number 1 was to read 50 books. At the moment, I think I've read somewhere around the 17 book mark, so I am behind schedule. My next goal was to finish 10 series. So far, I have done just one, and that is the Diviner series by Libba Bray. Honestly, completely forgot that this was one of my goals for the year, so haven't been focusing on it at all. Number 3 is to read the 20 books that I set out at the start of the year that I wanted to read in 2020. I did a video on this if you wanted to go and take a look at all of the books that I mentioned. I think I'm doing pretty well with this one, maybe a smidge behind, but I have read quite a few of the books that I said I wanted to read, and I will be talking about a few of the ones that I haven't read later on in this video. The next goal that I had was to read more widely, and the main thing I had in mind for this was genres. I wanted to break out a little bit from my reading bubble and read some different genres, and I has not done that very much at all. My last reading goal was to reread 10 favorites. Yeah, not doing so great on the reading goals. I will hopefully try and use those goals to coordinate some of my reading for the rest of the year, but I'm not putting a lot of my pressure on myself because, as I said, this year with reading has just been, I don't even know how to describe it in words. Now for the actual tag. The best book I have read so far in 2020. I've decided to mention a book that I've rated 4.5, but I don't know if I'm gonna stick to that rating. My gut tells me to give it the full 5 stars because it is a book I read at the start of the year. It has stuck with me. I think objectively, it's probably the best book I've read this year. The most well-written and well-crafted book. The only reason I really gave this less than 5 stars was because it took me about 100 pages to get into it and wrap my head around the book. And that book is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. So this is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and like I said, it took me a little while to get into it because at first I was like, am I too dumb to understand this? But the pieces slowly started fitting together, and after that point it was like smooth sailing. Well, smooth sailing, is that the right word? Like, there's a lot of really intense things that happen in this book. Oof. The characters were so fascinating and so complex. The world building is just perfection. It is wonderful. Really, really wonderful. The main premise of this is that the world is ending. There is this big rift that is torn across the continent and is spewing out ash and gases and wreaking havoc across the whole continent. And we follow this woman called Essen who, right around the time that this rift has been torn across the continent, comes home one day to find that her son has been murdered and her daughter has gone missing. So amidst the end of the world happening, Essen is trying to find her young daughter. And in this world we also have origins, who are people who are able to kind of manipulate different forms of energy like kinetic and thermal in response to like seismic events and stuff like that. It is a really wonderful book. I'm currently halfway through the sequel, The Obelisk Gate, and I feel safe in saying that I think this is a new favourite series. The best sequel so far of 2020. Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. This is an adorable graphic novel series that I have been thoroughly enjoying. It's about these 2 boys, Nick and Charlie. One of them is out, one of them is not. And it's initially about their friendship, but also the relationship that develops. It's the sweetest damn thing you'll ever read. It is so heartwarming, but also it doesn't shy away from some more serious topics. Obviously, it has to deal with bullying and homophobia. It also touches upon eating disorders in this one specifically, but ultimately, like, we have this beautiful blossoming relationship and all of the other wonderful relationships surrounding that as well. Queer boys, there's also some awesome queer side characters. Oh, I forgot to mention, the 5th season we have one of the characters is queer, there's a polyamorous relationship, there's also a trans character. Yes, for that rep. A new release you haven't read yet but want to. Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callendon. I was hoping to read this for the queer blackathon that just happened, but sadly I was not able to just yet. The audiobook isn't available in Australia at all. I tried like 4 different streaming services and libraries, and it's just not available in my territory. I have ordered a physical copy, but it's currently out of stock and I'm just waiting for it to come back in stock before I receive it. So I will eventually have my copy of Felix Ever After. I'm excited to read it, really excited to read it. But what I do know about this book is that we have a Black transgender main character, and it's a story of identity and self-discovery and love and all of those wonderful things. So fingers crossed I'll be able to read this and rave about it soon. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. So this is from the author of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I read and absolutely adored. This concept sounds super interesting. I'll be able to give you a better idea of if these comparisons are accurate at all when I read it, but the story kind of gives me House of Leaves and the Starless Sea vibes. It's about Piranesi, who lives in this house with endless corridors, an infinite number of rooms, and thousands upon thousands of statues. It sounds like a kind of dangerous place to live, with an ocean within the walls, and there is also another person or being that lives in this house called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week. And then one day I think Piranesi finds evidence that there might be somebody else living in this house as well. Sounds super mysterious, very fascinating, don't know what to expect. I think this one comes out sometime in September. Very thankful that Bloomsbury have sent me an early copy. The biggest disappointment of the year. I haven't been super disappointed by any books. A lot of my reads have kind of been mostly middle of the road with a few stellar ones, but the one that I thought I would probably enjoy a little bit more than I did was Schools for Good and Evil by Suman Chainani. So this is about 2 friends, Agatha and Sophie, who are swept off to the School of Good and Evil, but when they get there, they think that they have been placed in the wrong school. So it's about the 2 of them trying to fix their situation, be swapped back over to what they think are the right schools for them. Now, I'll admit that part of this may come down to the fact that this isn't targeted to me at all. Like, this is a middle grade novel, but I don't know, it just kind of missed the mark for me. I think I just went into this expecting more of a subversion on tropes and ideas of good versus evil, and I don't know, just sometimes I wasn't sure where this was going. It just seemed to kind of flip-flop a little bit all over the place. I listened to the audiobook for this one and I kind of just got to the point where I was just waiting for it to end. The biggest surprise. The Surprising Power of a Good Dumpling by Y. Chim. Did I partly choose this one because it has surprising in the title? Yes I did. But this one also was a really nice, pleasant surprise in just the general reading experience. I did go into this book expecting to enjoy it, but this book just really sunk its teeth into me, sucked out all of my juicy innards like a super dumpling. It really did capture me wholly and drew me into the pages and into these characters' story. I was really captivated from page 1. I whizzed through this book, and for the first time in a long time, I stayed up until like 2:30 in the morning one night reading this book, which doesn't happen very often because reading puts me to sleep. Our main character, Anna Chu, has her hands full. She's helping to look after her siblings as her dad is pretty much always gone taking care of his restaurant, and their mum has her good and her bad days. Sometimes her bad days can last for months where she just will not leave bed. There's also a boy that starts working at her father's restaurant called Rory, who is delightful and sweet. But this book is very much about family, culture, mental health, and the ways in which these intersect and affect each other, especially with Anna being like a first generation Chinese Australian. This was such a delightful read. I also liked that it's set in Sydney, Australia, so it was nice to recognize things. A favorite new author. This could be a debut author or a new to you author. For this one, I'm gonna go with N.K. Jemisin. As I said, I think this is going to be a new favorite series. Whilst reading The Obelisk Gate in particular, I just can't help but admire N.K. Jemison's talent for crafting such a fascinating world. And like, the world building has been so rich so far, but there's still so much more to uncover, and I'm really enjoying getting to know more about the way that the world works, why there are these different seasons. It's just, it is incredible. Newest fictional crush. I don't have an answer for this one. I was going through all of the books that I've read so far this year, and there wasn't really like a standout romantic interest to me, so I'm gonna bypass this question. Newest favorite character. New day, who dis? I decided to refilm the end of this video because there was a book I mentioned and very obviously displayed on the shelf for the rest of the video that I no longer feel comfortable promoting in light of some of the things that have come out about that particular author. Again, with this question, there wasn't really a character that stood out to me, or even a few characters that really stood out to me as new favorites, but I will say that I did really enjoy meeting Bitty, Eric Biddle, from Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu. So this is a lovely graphic novel that I recently picked up about Bitty, who has just gone to college and joins the hockey team. And I thought that Bitty was such a lovely character. First of all, he's a vlogger, which I really enjoyed, and he also loves baking, which I love seeing in books. I don't know, I just really like when a character has a hobby they are so passionate about and they just really enjoy spending time doing that thing and using that to make other people happy. Like, he bakes goodies for his teammates and it's just so sweet and wholesome, and it made me hungry while reading this book. And like, overall, Bitty was just really sweet and kind and wholesome. A book that made you cry. The Final Empire, book 1 in the Mistborn trilogy, Era 1 by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not going to go into any details about why I cried in this one, but just know it was an ugly cry situation. I think I started tearing up a little bit when I was doing one of my Read With Me live shows, and then the actual live show where I was discussing the Final Empire in like the spoilery section, I started crying. In this book, we meet Kelsier, who is a criminal mastermind, and he essentially takes Vin, who is a Scar street urchin, under his wing and teaches her a lot about allomancy, which is the magic system within this world. Alongside that, though, Kelsier is leading an uprising to take over the Lord Ruler, who has been reigning for 1,000 years, and it's been a reign of terror, let's just say that. Really enjoyed The Final Empire, and I'm excited to continue on with the rest of the series. A book that made you happy. You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. So this was such a wonderful book and definitely a lot of heartfelt happy moments. Overall, this was a really hopeful and happy book, but it does also touch on some kind of more serious topics like racism and homophobia and just some really toxic friendships and dynamics as well. Like I said, overall, it was a really wonderful book, and there were some moments in this that just made me so happy. I guess I should tell you what this book is about. So we follow Liz Lighty, who decides to run for prom because the people who get crowned prom king and prom queen are awarded like a $10,000 scholarship, which would very much benefit Liz in getting into the college that she wants to. Things get a little bit complicated, however, when this new girl, Mac, arrives at school, and she is also running for prom queen, and feelings ensue. So this is a book that I read for the recent Queer Blackathon. Like I said, there were a lot of really special moments in this book that brought me a lot of joy. I just really appreciate those scenes in books where two characters who really care about each other and have been struggling with one thing or another, or lack of communication for whatever reason, finally open up and communicate their feelings and their hopes. And there were a few of those moments in this book that made me so very happy. The romance as well was just so lovely and great, and I would recommend this book. Favorite book to movie adaptation you've seen this year? The only thing that's kind of coming to mind is Gone Girl, which I know I watched kind of recently, but I'm not actually 100% sure if I watched it in 2020. And even still, I haven't even finished reading the book. I got about halfway through the book and decided to DNF it, but I did enjoy watching the movie, so there's that. I'm just going to hesitantly say this one, but it may not be accurate. The most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. I actually have two books that I'm going to show here, and these are actually the two books that I unboxed in my recent Illumicrate unboxing video, and those books are Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn and Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. First of all, Dangerous Remedy. I am absolutely in love with this cover. I can't get over how gorgeous the color is. The gold and silver accents are just so stunning. I also do appreciate that it has sprayed edges. Even the back cover, the illustrations of this is just so eye-catching to me, and I love the fact that there's like an embossed image on the hardcover itself. Just This book, the end pages are so gorgeous. And of course, Chain of Gold, this amazing edition with the foiling, the stunning, stunning foiling. Again, with the spread edges, I do really appreciate that. There's also character art and stuff in here as well. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Once again, I'm gonna link to my 20 books to read in 2020 video so you can have an idea of all the books that I'm definitely hoping to read this year. I have read a few of those so far, which is great, but my top priorities that I have remaining from that are The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan, Jade War by Fonda Lee, this is the sequel to Jade City, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I've been meaning to read this for the longest time. It's one of my friend's favorite books, and I really, really need to prioritize this at some point. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, because again, I need to read this. The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, the third and final book in the Broken Earth trilogy. As I've mentioned, I'm loving this series so far and I do not want to wait months and months to finish the series. Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman. I have read a shameful amount of Indigenous Australian books, so it's definitely a priority of mine to read more Indigenous Australian literature, Terra Nullius being one of them. Lastly, Upon a Burning Throne by Ashok K. Banker. I am waiting for my copy of this one to arrive. It's an Indian-inspired epic fantasy and it sounds absolutely amazing, so really looking forward to jumping into this one when my copy gets here. So those are all of the questions for the mid-year book freakout tag. My booktuber shout out for today is Starla Reads. First and foremost, for her amazing recommendation of Upon a Burning Throne. I recently watched her May reading wrap-up video and the way that she raved about it made me instantly go and purchase it. So a huge thank you to Starla for that glowing recommendation. I've been really enjoying Starla's reviews and reading wrap-ups and reading vlogs, so please do go and check out her channel. So that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys soon in a new video, but until then, I'll talk to you in the comments. Bye!